Hey beauties, it's Fafa here coming to you guys with another video. In today's video, as you can tell by the title, it's going to be a little bit different than like the beauty videos that I usually do. If my voice seems a little lower, it's because there are people in the house and I don't want to be too loud. So today's video, as you could probably tell from the title, is going to be all about love languages. So the reason why I decided to do this video is because with the resurgence of like self-love and self-care, I feel like there's been a lot of miscommunication and misinformation on YouTube and on Instagram and on Twitter and all the social media platforms about what self-care really is. And I do want to kind of do more videos geared towards mental health and just all of the stuff that I'm pretty passionate about. For those of you who don't know, I'm currently getting my master's in social work. I plan on being in a school setting preferably, and mental illness is kind of my forte. I got my bachelor's in psych. Now this video doesn't have really much to do with like self-care in the like technical sense. Like it's more of like communicating with others and trying to find your love language when you're interacting with other people. What made me want to do this video in the first place is because I feel like love languages and the concept of love languages might be one of the only things that I've found on social media that I actually think is useful and has a little merit to it. So I wanted to kind of expound upon the concept of love languages and how it pertains to not just relationships, but friendships, business relationships, work relationships, school relationships, etc., etc. Okay, so if you guys want to know a little bit more about love languages, keep watching. As you guys can see, I literally threw on a hoodie and some sweatpants and was like, let me just get this video done. So what are love languages? So love languages is how you communicate and receive affection. On one end, your love language might be manifested in the way that you received love from your parents when you were growing up. And on the other hand, it could be the opposite. So it could be something that you crave because you didn't receive it when you were younger. So it's either or. A lot of people feel like when they're love languages aren't being met, then they don't feel loved, right? So the purpose of this video is to kind of get clarity about not only your love language, but the person that you're interacting with, their love language, so that you know how to communicate in an effective way. So before I continue, I'll leave a link down below where you can kind of take a quiz. It's one of those quizzes, but it really does give you insight on what your love language is, and what you need to feel affection and feel love from other people. That we know of, there are 5 love languages. One of them is my love language, which is words of affirmation. So words of affirmation just means that you like to be encouraged, uplifted. You like to know that you're being appreciated. You like when people empathize and listen actively with you. You just like to hear whatever it is that person is thinking. So you're really into words and what people say to you, and it affects the way, you know, you function and the way you feel loved. So an example for me, since I said that was my love language, is that I love cards. So if someone writes me a meaningful note in a card, to me, it makes me feel appreciated. It makes me feel good inside. That's how I receive love. And similarly, I give love the same way. So I'm a long card writer. I like to compliment people a lot. I am very expressive when it comes to gratitude. I like to let people know how I feel about whatever good thing they did for me. So a person whose love language is words of affirmation, again, needs somebody to empathize, somebody to appreciate what they're doing, somebody to encourage them, to affirm. All of those things are good. Actions to take, like I was saying, a note, a card, things like that are super meaningful for people whose love language is words of affirmation. What not to do if you are with someone or friends with someone, or if you have a partner whose love language is the words of affirmation, is it says not to criticize. And yes, people whose love languages are words of affirmation are highly critical or highly sensitive to criticism from the people that they care about. But I think if it's productive, they just have to get over it. But do always make sure that you show whoever it is, like in a in the conversation, like if we're talking about a spouse, letting them know that they're appreciated, letting them know that you love them and care for them. If you don't do those things, they won't feel loved, they won't feel affection, they won't feel like you care. So that is words of affirmation. Similarly, how you can tell is if they're like that with you, like if they are always complimenting you, they're always writing notes and they write meaningful things and they appreciate the effort that you take for them, then chances are they probably have that love language. So yeah. So the next one is physical touch. So these people like to be touched. This doesn't always mean in a sexual way. It could also just be like a touch on the shoulder, like just feeling touched by other people makes them feel loved and appreciated. Non-verbal communication, non-verbal gesture, hugging, holding hands, just being physically intimate with them will help them feel validated in a relationship, in a friendship, in everything. Like, these are the people that always give hugs. They're huggers. They like to hold people. They like to, you know, show affection in that way. Those are probably the people that have physical touch as their love language. So for those people, physical neglect or long periods of times where they're not being physically touched will make them feel neglected, will make them feel invalidated, will make them feel unloved. So if you have a partner who whose love language is physical touch, you need to hold their hands, you need to hug them every now and again, you need to like show them affection in a physical way. So for me, which is so funny because it's like the next one I'm talking about, physical touch is probably the last on my list. Like, a lot of the times your love language comes from childhood. So how did you receive love from your parents when you were younger? For me and my family, we don't be doing all of that physical touch stuff. It's more like we see each other. So most of the time I didn't receive that from my parents, so it wasn't something that I needed to be fulfilled. The next love language is receiving gifts. So this is kind of self-explanatory, but not, because I think when someone's love language is gifts, people think it's like a vanity thing or something, or a selfish thing, or like a well, not so much a vanity thing, but they think it's like a selfish thing or a spoiled thing, and that's not necessarily the case. People who need gifts to feel loved is more like little meaningful, like I'm thinking of you type thing. So even if it's something super small, like, or you bring them candy, or you bring them something that they talked about and you bring it to them like the next day. So let's say, for example, I talked about ooh, I really wanted some pizza, and you come and bring me pizza. Like, that's a gift, and that would make me feel loved and validated, right? It doesn't have to be something huge, it doesn't have to be something big. The point is that it has to be something that's meaningful, and that's the way that they receive love. And a lot of the times you'll know this because they'll probably be the type of people to give you meaningful gifts throughout the day, or meaningful, I'm just thinking of you things, like things that will show you that they care or they're thinking of you. So that's their way of doing that. Forgetting birthdays, forgetting special occasions, forgetting Christmas, forgetting Valentine's Day, those are the things that are really going to affect them, because they're going to feel like you don't care. Not giving a gift on your birthday, even if they say they don't want a gift, will make them feel neglected and will hurt their feelings. So if you have someone, a friend, a spouse, etc., who appreciates gift giving, give gifts, even in like the purpose of like a work environment. For example, let's say you have an internship. Like, if you know that your boss or your supervisor likes to receive gifts, then a good idea would be to give them a gift before you leave your internship, because that's going to make them feel appreciated or make them feel like your time there was meaningful. The next one, which is another one of mine, is quality time. For them, the people whose love languages are quality time, they love one-on-one meaningful conversations with whoever they're friends with, their spouse or whatever. Like, they're one of those people that like quality time. Now, emphasis is on meaningful conversation, because just because you're around that person, if they don't feel like the conversation or the time spent was meaningful, they're still going to feel neglected. So an example of this would be if you're kind of just going through the motions in conversation, like if it's all small talk, they're not going to feel like the conversation is meaningful, and they're not going to consider that quality time. At the same time, you could be in a room with maybe a significant other and not say anything, but you guys are vibing and it's like a one accord kumbaya cuddle whatever session, or you guys are just watching Netflix or something like that, and that might be considered meaningful conversation to them. So Keep that in mind, that just because you spend time with your significant other, friend, etc., etc., if it's not meaningful time, it does not count to them. For example, if you're out with your friends, they might not consider that quality time because you're not by yourself. So what's going to make them feel unloved, unappreciated, invalidated, etc., etc., is being distracted when you guys have one-on-one time. So if you're texting while you're on a date with that person, they're not going to feel loved, and they're going to feel hurt because they're going to take it like you don't want to spend time with them. Going a long time without having one-on-one time with your spouse whose love language is quality time is not going to be it's going to be a no-go. So like, for example, if you're in a long distance relationship, I recommend a lot of FaceTime, a lot of texting, a lot of I care about you and this is our time to talk. So scheduling time to, like, this is our time to talk, this is our time to spend with each other will be really helpful for those who have a love language of quality time. And last but not least, acts of service. So those with whose love language is acts of service, they just want to be helped. They want to feel like someone is helping them and that they're not alone. The people whose love language is acts of service are probably very helpful themselves. They probably try to help out in any way, and they probably feel like in relationships, for example, if their love language isn't necessarily physical touch or words of affirmation or any of the other things that I've mentioned, probably feel like just helping you out around the house is good enough, because that's the way they receive love. Taking the trash out, doing groceries, helping out with chores, helping out with maybe a job thing they have to do, helping them with their schoolwork, all of those things to them feel like love. For them, what makes them feel unloved and invalidated is if you don't help them out, and if you promise that you're going to help them out and don't follow through with anything, big or small. So if you say you're going to take out the trash and you don't, if you say you're going to help them with their homework and you don't, if you say you're going to help them get their hair done as a friend, if you say that you're going to help them get their hair done, you don't, that's going to really affect them, because they're going to take it as if you don't love them and you don't care about them. So those are the 5 love languages that I think are, meaningful, and I think it's such a good way to know how to communicate with the people that you care about. And a lot of times people give love, like I said, the way they want to receive love, and they don't really take into consideration that their love languages might be 2 different things. So it's an ongoing process. If you have a spouse, for example, who likes receiving gifts, like little I'm thinking of you gifts, you have to make that a part of your routine, especially if it's not something that you do on a regular basis or something that you need to function. So that's usually the issue, and the important thing is to find the balance to where both needs are being met. It's the same thing with friendships. So for example, if my love language for friendships are acts of service, and I ask you for a favor and you don't follow through, I'm not going to feel validated in the friendship. So you have to, and maybe that's not a big deal to you, but it's a huge deal for me. So you have to make sure that you're honoring both love languages. You know what I mean? It's not to say just because one is your love language that the other ones won't be, because a lot of the times people have more than one. Like I have more than one. So just keep that in mind as well. People might need different things, or a culmination of all of them to feel loved. And it's something that I think couples should definitely talk about. Like, what is your love language? How do you receive love? How do you give love? What is it that I have to do to make you feel appreciated in this relationship? Because that might be helpful, So I think that's it. I hope I explained it well enough. I'm going to leave the link down to the quiz that you can take to find out what your love language is in the description bar below. And if you have any questions or any topics that are related to like mental health, self-care, just self-improvement in general, if you have any questions or video requests, just put them in the description bar below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.